So, you clicked on this video and you want to win some Skywars. This video will focus on both PvP and strategy aspects of the game. Let's start with the basics of PvP. You're going to want to learn two things, aim and strafing. I'll have a more in-depth tutorial on these two topics coming soon, but I'll explain the basics to you now. Aim is extremely simple. Just keep your crosshair on the enemy player and hit them. Learning to track the player across the screen is the key to winning fights with aim. The only way to learn aim is to practice. Just keep playing the game and you'll gradually get better at aim. The next skill is strafing. Just strafe in a circle or side to side around your opponent. Just try not to strafe directly into their crosshair. The next skill is speed bridging. There are three main methods of speed bridging: block by block, 2 blocks in, and hyper bridging. I will show you how to do all three of them now. The first method of bridging is block by block. Stand on the edge of the platform that you want to bridge off of until there is a black outline on the block that you are standing on. Place a block, walk forward until there's a black outline around that, place another block, and repeat this process until you get to where you want to go. The second method is 2 blocks in. You're going to want to count 3 blocks in from the edge of the platform, place a block on the third block, stand on that block, so that way you have 2 blocks in front of you. Then, push your cursor over the block in front of you, hold your build button, and then walk forward. You stood start to chain a bridge to wherever you want to go. The last method, hyper bridging, is a little bit more difficult than the others to master, but it's definitely doable with a few minutes of practice. Again, stand on the edge of the platform until there is a black outline around the block you're standing on. Then, you're going to want to place a block and flick the cursor down to your feet at the same time. Then, walk forward, and then start sprinting and jumping. This should chain a hyper bridge. Now that you know the basics of PvP and speed bridging, we're going to talk about strategy. I will be explaining and dissecting two games, one with my own playstyle, which is heavily PvP based, and another with a more strategy based playstyle. At the beginning of the game, I always recommend picking Kit Healer because you get an extra gap, which really helps you out in your fights. My playstyle is really heavily PvP based, so I always like to rush mid and wait for most players to come to me. If there's a camper on his island, I rush him. You always loot your 3 chests unless you get enough blocks and a good sword on your first chest. Then you just go to mid. So I'm going to loot all 3 of mine because I did not get a good weapon on my first 2. So after I misclick in my furnace, I get a good weapon, which is a sharpness 2 iron. It's the best sword in normal mode. Then I use my hyper bridging to get to middle really fast. I loot the chests at mid and wait for a fight to come to me. Here I tower up to this chest, just so I can get it. There's nothing really to it. I notice that there's a person behind me and I go to fight. I strafe and aim to get an easy win on that fight. I shouldn't really have taken this fight here because I was still a bit low from the last one, but I decided to and it turned out fine. But then 2 people came in and cleaned me, so I had decided to run and heal rather than die there. You have to know when to pick your fights and what fights you can't win. I couldn't have 3v1 those guys at 2 hearts, so I decided to run and heal. This guy, I picked a fight with him. He was using anti-knockback hacks, but at least he wasn't using kill aura. I chased this guy because I knew he was low. He was running and eating food, so I chased him and got a kill. I eat my bread to heal, and this is when I noticed that this guy's using anti-knockback hacks. I was planning on knocking him off with my eggs, letting him take fall damage, and then killing him, but since he wasn't falling and using anti-knockback, I towered up and killed him myself. So yeah, My playstyle is pretty much rush mid and then use my PvP ability to my fullest advantage to win fights. And now moving on to the strategy playstyle. For this playstyle, you're going to want to rush mid as fast as you can, get yourself as geared up as possible, and then draw back to either the second or third ring of the map. There, you'll just want to pick fights that you can gain something off of, or you know that you can easily win until you have enough gear to win the game. So yeah, just loot your 3 mid chests as you would usually do. And then I'm going to hyperbridge to middle. Or, this is actually the second ring. Loot so I have enough blocks, go to the actual middle, and then I do 2 blocks in bridging to the middle. I loot the mid chests, look around for a safe escape route, and then get out of there. Here, I'm looking around for an escape route. I see that there's players on the second ring. So I decide to loot these chests and wait for the players to disperse. I notice that there is a relatively unarmored player on the second ring that I'm facing, and I decide to use an already built bridge to get to him. I decide that maybe he has a better sword that I can use, and if nothing else, he might have gaps that I can have. He's distracted with another player. Cleaning is another great strategy in this method, even though it is sometimes annoying to other players. I check if he had a better sword. He didn't. But he did have gaps, so I take those, and now I have 4 gaps. I did gain something from that fight. This guy looks like he can have an easy kill, and it would be nice to have another player out of the game. I couldn't get him from that angle, so I go over to this island to get a better angle on him. You don't have to take this fight, but I would just like to get this player out of the game in this particular scenario. I bridge back to middle to see if there's anybody else I can get out of the game. Remember, only pick fights that you can gain something off of, or fights that you can easily win to eliminate players. This fight, I can gain something, his diamond helmet. He jumped down and is looting a chest. I decide to jump and crit him, like this. So, if you don't know, on your way down of a jump, you can actually hit a crit for more damage. So jump, and then on your way down, just hit your opponent. He actually had 4 gaps, which sets me up for gaps for pretty much the rest of the game, plus the diamond helmet that I was after. Again, I bridge back to middle to see if there's anything else I can gain. At this point, I didn't notice that there were only 2 players left, but there were. I didn't want to fight him yet because I didn't know what gear he had, so I ran around the side of the island to better see what he had. It turns out he had diamond leggings, so I run to a choke point so that way I can easily get a few hits off of him. Also, I eat a golden apple so that way the fight's a little bit easier. Again, I use my aim and strafing to win this fight. That's the strategy. So pretty much, you just rush mid, get all geared up, and then only pick fights if you can easily win them or gain something off of them. That's the strategy.